And I guess without further ado, why don't we go ahead and do initial introductions, and then we can kind of go ahead and get started with the bulk of the content. So, okay, sorry about that. So what I wanted to do is hide the slides for a minute so you can see me full screen. I know that I look so beautiful today, but I wanted to take a minute and just introduce myself if I haven't had a chance to meet you yet. My name is Bob Clements, and I am the president of Axsium Group. I've been doing this workforce management thing for quite a long time. I wrote my first schedule by hand when I was 16 for the grocery store that I worked in, and then I wrote my first workforce management program in my early 20s, and it was a DOS-based application that did schedule bidding. I wrote my first Windows-based version of that in the 90s. And I wrote one of the early web-based versions of workforce management in the early 2000s. And then in the late 2000s, 2007 or so, I designed what was going to become one of the first mobile workforce management solutions before I came to Axsium. And then I arrived at Axsium, where I've been closely monitoring the space and working with our customers as they take this mobile workforce management journey, which has become a hot topic, but had less adoption than we'd like, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But let me take a minute now and ask Robin to unmute herself and introduce herself to you guys.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see such a great participant load out there. Thank you for attending with us. I want to do a sound check, Bob, because I was hearing a little background noise. Is everything okay?
I can hear you just fine. And I guess I'd ask all the attendees. I'd ask all the attendees to just make sure you got yourself muted. If you haven't done so already. Thank you.
Great. So I'd like to say I wasn't as old as Bob, but I am. So I started at 16 in the workforce management, having your first job, right? And I never forget when I think back about on the journey of digital workplace and mobilization and really just engaging with your team. One of my very first engagements with my employer was 1980. And the way that my employer told me I was going to be off the next day, which was a Friday, it was great, right? I was in high school, was that I got a note on my windshield of my car while I was at the movie theater with my friends. And that was to tell me that I had the next day off, wanted to let me know. So that's great. It was a very small town. It worked. But I have been involved with workforce management, engaging the employees since 1980. And I didn't build the technical side like Bob did, but my journey has taken us on the employee engagement side, the enablement, the Team X experience, where I have seen us go from trying very hard to do team meetings and have discussions on workforce management, trying to do, bring everybody on site for types of meetings around workforce management and solving your enablement problems, to today, where we are so excited about all of the different opportunities in technology that can solve so many problems. And we're not just talking about scheduling that I've seen or just communication. There are so many journeys to this mobility in workforce management, and I've been very lucky to be a part of that since 1980. So I really, again, appreciate you guys for participating with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Robin. I really appreciate that background. And why don't we go ahead and get started? I'm loading up the rest of the deck now that we've done introduction, so hopefully everybody can see that right now. And I wanted to start with a little bit of an introduction. Just as at a high level, we're going to cover a few things today. So the first thing we want to do is provide a bit of an introduction or background, and then we're going to get into kind of the strategy behind mobile workforce management and the digital workplace. And we're going to talk through several of the challenges that we've seen our customers face and other retailers face as they've started on the journey. And then ultimately, we're going to kind of wrap up with a few key takeaways. And like I said, if you have any questions throughout, please don't hesitate to use that Q&A panel on the right side to ask your questions or share your opinions. So with that said, let's kind of get into this idea that there is this unfulfilled promise of mobile workforce management. Like I said in my introduction, mobile workforce management is something that I actually helped design a module for back in the kind of 2007, 2008 timeframe. And while the technology has been available for a long, long time, we've ultimately not seen as much adoption as I think there should be in this space. And I think there are lots of reasons that drive that adoption. And as I start to preview your poll answers, I start to see kind of the things that I think have held us up from adoption. And probably the biggest number one thing is that there's legal risk associated with it. It seems like no matter how excited the business gets about mobile workforce management, we have real challenges with legal, the law side of things, saying, well, no, this constitutes work, or no, we can't, we're going to have to pay for data, or no, we're going to have all these other, whatever, you name it, there's a challenge. The good news is a lot of those challenges can be overcome, but we haven't seen a lot of people get over that hurdle yet. But beyond even the legal side of it, we see a lot of other challenges. The technology that's available doesn't necessarily do what we want it to do. There's not necessarily the internal business support or ownership. We have a hard time justifying the cost or the cost benefit of it. But the reality is that there is a tremendous amount of benefit to mobile. Kind of emotionally, I think we feel that there's benefit there, right? If we give employees more control over their schedule, allow them to swap shifts, they're going to be more engaged, and we're going to improve our retention. Beyond the employee benefits, it also helps us actually with compliance these days, because if you're working in an area where there's predictive scheduling going on, you need a mechanism to be able to offer your employees additional shifts, and mobile workforce management can do that. There's also a great cost benefit associated with mobile workforce management, and that benefit can be realized in a number of different ways. But one of the biggest ones is if I start providing mobile to my employees, I really start saving my managers tremendous amount of time, and I can either turn that into a savings, or more likely redeploy my managers so that they can spend time doing the things I want them to do, which is either A, being the best salesperson on the sales floor, or B, managing the employees. So there are great benefits for organizations that can get to the mobile workforce management. But if you can't, or even if you haven't tried yet, the reality is that you've already lost control of your mobile experience in the digital workplace, because your employees are doing this without you. It's often said that Facebook and Facebook groups are the number one workforce management solution on the market today. And it's true, because your employees are using Facebook or WhatsApp, or maybe even some of these specialized shift management applications to do what you're not doing for them. And it's all happening outside of your view. So there is really an imperative to solve the problems that prevented us from getting to low adoption. And that's what we're hoping to talk a little bit about today. And Robin and I really want to talk about the experiences that we've had doing that. But before we get there, let's see how your results line up with our experience. And I'm hoping that you guys are able to see the results of the poll. Can you?
Not yet.
Robin, not yet?
I'm not seeing yet. Maybe that's just mine, but I'm not seeing anything. I refreshed mine here. I still see the poll.
Oh, there we go. I got it now, I think.
Now I see it. Yeah,
perfect.
Now I see it.
So because we ended up doing this a little bit before people got on, we didn't get a ton of responses. I'm hoping the next poll will be better. Hint, hint. I'm sorry, I'm pointing at my speakerphone. I should be pointing at my camera. But ultimately, I think that the responses that we saw here kind of jibe with what I was expecting, Robin. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that in the past, or what's been holding us back from moving beyond just engaging with the employees and making this a mobile engagement, is that we've really paralyzed ourselves in some cases with the legal risk. I think that it was like, it's compliance issues that we talk about with workforce management, all the time. But I think nowadays we're so worried about, does California say I have to pay their full-on, data plan if they even use their phone once for it? And I think that it's just paralyzed a lot of our customers to not move forward with it, because it's easier than fighting the fight of compliance, because I'm already having to fight it in workforce management. So legal risk doesn't surprise me, because I think that we've gotten in our own ways for it. And by the way, that's one of the things that we've been so helpful with our customers on is sitting down with them and doing workshops to talk about what that compliance really looks like. And it's not as scary as you think it is. And it's much easier than you can imagine in some of these states. So that doesn't surprise me, Bob. I don't know about you, but that didn't surprise me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that this is what I would expect from, talking with any group of retailers, which is the number one thing was legal risk. But then beyond that, we kind of get a fragment of different things of, hey, we haven't started that journey yet. We don't have the business support that we need, or we've got technology. And the good news is those are the things we're going to talk about in the next few slides, right? We're going to spend the next 40 minutes or what a miracle. Woohoo! But before we get into that, I do want to kick off our next poll. Now, the next poll is going to ask you about why you're implemented or want to implement mobile workforce management. And so I'm going to go ahead and open that poll and give you guys a few minutes to respond. And then Robin and I are going to start shifting gears to actually talk about a couple of our customer journeys, about how people achieved success. And one of the big ideas that Robin and I realized as we started working with customers around the digital workplace and mobile workforce management is that definition of success is a little bit different for everybody. Unlike workforce management, where compliance is a big thing, or better aligning our labor to demand is a big thing, we're finding that there's different reasons why people start this journey. And so to kind of get us into this, we wanted to share a few stories and case studies around our experiences. So Robin, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
You bet. And as you can see on the screen, if you're watching with us on the webinar, Target Australia is a brand that started down this journey. And I have a saying that I tell all my friends and family, which is, look, you do you. You do what you need to do. This to me is how the digital workplace and the mobilization of engaging with your team has started. The why is always specific for you. The why is not the same. If you go to any type of workshop or any seminar, any session, everybody has a reason on their own on why they started their journey. For Target Australia, specifically, Target Australia works differently than they do in the U.S. Not the same brand. It's very different. And what Target needed to do was to engage with their employees to build their brand. If they built the brand within Target Australia employees, they just not automatically assumed that it would also resonate with customers because the employees were excited about being at work. So the COO literally took this on as his own job, and it was to engage the workforce just in communication. He wanted to tell them more about the excitement of the brands that they were bringing into Target. He wanted them to get excited about their stores, their visual merchandising. Everything was really to begin with about communication. They knew the journey would take them other places, which would be to view schedules, to ask off on shifts, to all the other things that were workforce management related. For them, maybe surveys and some of the other ways that you can use some of these mobile tools. Those were all part of it, but their journey started with, we need to communicate. One of the examples I think is just impactful was most of you all as retailers have employee discount days. Now, you might have it all year long, but there might be a special weekend for employees only. They get an extra 20% or whatever the number is. Target Australia had always done that. I think it was once a year. For the whole weekend, the employees could come in and have extra percentages off or certain products that were at a good rate. And this time, they normally would do about 10,000 Australia dollars for the whole weekend. So the COO decided, well, let's make a big deal out of it, and let's see if the product will work for us to communicate to our employees. So they started doing videos in the stores, showing pictures of the items that they would get special discounts on, showing people wearing the merchandise. And then they also had what they called warriors out into the stores that had on separate colored shirts so they could help you navigate the system to get the communication as they were launching all of this. It was that weekend they did over 50,000 in one day versus 10,000 in a weekend. So that's impactful, right? I mean, that's a huge impact to your business. Imagine if you do that beyond. And they took that journey on down through visual merchandising opportunities where they would upload videos. Now, remember, the COO took this very personally. It was part of his daily job. So ownership, as we'll talk about later on, was very, very important for this to be successful and be able to run with it. And now there's so many stories I could tell you about Target Australia. They tell them all the time everywhere they go. So this was their journey. This was their why. And that's along this journey. That's why I say you be you and do you in the beginning. Now, Bob, I know we also have we have a grocer in the U.S. They took a little bit of a different journey, but still about engaging with their workforce.
Well, yeah, that's right. This one client that we started working with relatively recently in the U.S., also started down the same path, but did it for a very different reason. They recognized that right now in the U.S., we face practically a full employment marketplace. It's very, very hard to find new people. And so retention becomes very important. And when you do find those new people, you want to make sure that they've got a great experience once they join and have the tools that they need that maybe they can't find someplace else in the market. It's that concept of employer of choice that we all have talked about so often. And so they said that we really want to be able to provide a couple of tools to our associates that are going to improve their experience and hopefully improve retention. So they said we want to give them the ability to pick up extra hours or additional shifts, which they're not operating in predictive scheduling locations right now, but still that concept I think is a global problem and it's something they wanted to provide. And second, they wanted to provide daily pay, which is the idea that after I work a shift, I can actually get paid then and not wait until payday. So we worked with them to very quickly come up with the strategy, help put in place the right technology, and get into pilot very quickly. And then we'll start to see a broader deployment of all this stuff. But again, very different strategic focus from communication. This was all about retention. Now, we've worked with other grocers, and it's funny because when you even hold up two grocers side by side, they have different reasons for getting there. So you've been heavily involved with another grocer that has come at it from a different perspective, haven't you?
I have. And, Bob, I'm just curious. I kind of want to implement the pay thing for us. I'd like to get paid before, too. So if we could work on that from our digital standpoint.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
I have. So, again, if I go back to Australia, because we're very global in this workplace, with the engagement that's happening today, when I go back to this very large grocer that really was interested and made a promise about team member engagement. And they couldn't figure out, was this communication? Was this really beyond that? And for them, they looked at it as more of a schedule and shift management. Quick story was when, they had a particular banner that had 900 shifts uncovered for a week. They call in central staffing, literally pick up the phone to call. 700 of those shifts didn't get filled. 200 did. And in some locations where they weren't on a very low 211 coverage, shifts weren't open. People weren't getting the stores open. And then you think about the team member experience. I could have picked that shift up. I could have worked, but maybe I wasn't there to get the phone call. Maybe I was in school or I was dropping off the kids, but I didn't get the phone call in time to make the shift. Their journey was very, very much about, we have a problem. I need to get to my employees, but I want them to feel like they have some ownership of their experience in workforce management. If I want to pick up more hours, here's an easy way to do it. The technology allows you to do it. If I need to maybe get my shifts covered, I can do it without having to call a store manager or the scheduling manager on duty. Them actually pull up the call list, call the people that need to, hope they're going to call back. Maybe it's even texting. And I think they also knew that from their team member experience that they were, Bob, you mentioned it earlier, WhatsApp, Facebook. I mean, if you don't think it's happening, you should just troll through some of those Facebook posts that you might get a hold of. They are controlling your workforce management, your communication, and your journey. And that's what this large grocer was thinking was, how can we help organize it for them? It shouldn't be this hard for them. So the team member experience was their beginning of their journey. Now that's going, you can already see as they're going into the pilot, you can already see they've already created the next phase, which is the communication and can I talk to them or do training differently? So, Bob, I think that, again, two grocers, too large, going at it in a different way, but still thinking about the same thing, which is engaging and moving in that. And I know you have one more to share with us as well.
I do. So the last one was from a specialty retailer that approached me a while back, and they asked me, we started talking about mobile workforce management, because really what they wanted to do was find a way to just take the module that their vendor provided and get it out in the field, because they thought that they would have a tremendous benefit both to the employees and the managers in terms of time savings, to streamline things like how do I call in somebody if I need somebody to pick up an extra shift or something along those lines. The challenge was that they realized that the vendor didn't provide the functionality they necessarily wanted to use. They couldn't, for example, post open shifts. So once we started actually sitting down and talking about it, we started looking at third-party solutions, which were a little bit easier to use, provided the capability that was needed, and provided actually more than what they were really looking for. But once they started bringing the vendors in to look more closely at the vendors, they started to realize the power of not just doing scheduling, but also with communication, because they didn't have a good way to communicate directly to the associates, kind of like what we talked about with Target. They had the ability to do other things like provide mobile learning or provide marketing and promotional information, which their associates could potentially social sell, offer through social media, but be prompted from the app. So all of a sudden, this whole world of things opened up. And I heard this client recently say that, we started on a mobile workforce, down the path of mobile workforce management, when all of a sudden we realized we were on this digital workplace journey. So the point of our of this topic here today, right now, is to really highlight that your strategy, your objectives may be different, but it's important to understand, and where you get to at the end may look very similar to what another retailer is doing, but the thing that drives you is going to be unique. And something that Axsium's really helped do for our customers is help them identify and establish what those guiding principles are that they can always hold up to say, this is what success means to us in this project. So let's take a quick look at what our audience said and our attendees said in terms of the results. And so I think that the results of this poll are showing. We did get a few more respondents this time, so thank you very much for that. And Robin, I guess just at first glance, any surprise in terms of what you're seeing here?
No, not at all. I think this is how it starts, right? I think it is, if we were to ask you, what are the promises that you've made to your employees? What are you promising them? And for the most part, I think we always hear, we promise we'll be more transparent. We'll promise we'll be more engaging. We're going to give you more of the autonomy for your scheduling, and if you want more hours, you can get them. I think that's what everybody is striving to these days, and really struggling with, what is it to get there? Is it because do I need to look at a new workforce management system? Is it a new way to engage in team meetings? Is it product? Is it, I believe that we're all struggling in the same way to figure out, how do I improve the associate engagement and just in getting them more information? Yep, I totally agree. Well, hey, let's move on, because we're starting to fall behind schedule, which doesn't surprise me, because when you and I get together, we start chatting and we start chewing up too much time. So let's shift gears and talk about actually, before I do that, I want to start the next poll. And so I'm going to go ahead and open this poll, and you guys have about 5 minutes to respond to this next poll, which is poll number 3. And really it's asking who your champion or owner of your employees' digital experiences. And I'm not going to be surprised if the answer is nobody from a lot of people, because that's one of the biggest hurdles that we see when we start talking to our customers about their digital workplace journey is who is the owner, and really the importance of ownership overall. So Robin, do you want to talk for just a minute about this? I think that the very first thing, that it might seem so obvious, but an owner is required. Now, the reason I think this is so important is because I think the digital workplace, the mobilization gets lost in translation. And every department says, oh, no, we have a communication group or a channel. We've got that, don't worry. But if you think about the end user, think about me in the store, even if I'm a casual or part-time employee and I work just 6 hours a week, I'm still a brand manager for you guys. I'm still part of the engagement as a full company. And yet, if no one is really thinking about everything that comes across an end user or the store employees world, and no one's really owning it, you're getting pieces of it, but you're not really engaging from the full breadth that you could from a digital or mobilization of the workforce management. So the owner is absolutely required. Now, I know this seems tough because we're not used to some of this, or not used to it at this level. It's just like I said with the COO of Target Australia, that's required. It is really required at a very high level. Why? Because there's a lot of building blocks they're going to have to break down, some that have been there forever. So I really believe it's got to have a high-level attention to it, someone that can make the executive decisions, that can push through it. The large retailer or grocer that's in Australia, it's the CEO that's really running a whole digital experience for them. That's required because in some cases, like I said, people say, I've got this, or we have a communication channel, or no, we have mobile, it's working just fine. But is it really? Is it really working for what it's supposed to? So number one, owner is required, C-level required. You got it. Now, what you have are supporting castmates, right? So there is a very large amount of folks who are going to support this effort along the way. So, it's a matter of steering committees. It's a matter of, this is not an IT project. It is a supporting role from the IT, right? So what does that really mean? I think IT would love to hear that. They would love to not have to own all the projects that come across that are technology related. Their job is really to say, what do you need? What are your business requirements so that we can ensure the technology supports you? Like Bob was saying, maybe it's the mobile already in your WFM system. Maybe it's something that you've built, and we'll talk about that towards the end, the different types of technology. But IT is there to support. This is not driven by IT. It's so much bigger than that, because if you think about this world, the engagement, the team experience, we really need to hear from the team. We need to hear from the owners out in the field with operations, HR. Sure, legal and all the rest of them are part of it. But as you are growing this project, you're going to realize that you are crossing so many different areas. So again, it's not the IT that supports it.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that idea of the cross-functional team is absolutely critical, in my opinion, to be able to get it out. The biggest challenge that you're going to have as a leader in this space, because even though you might have somebody at the C-level that owns it, you probably will be driving it forward, meaning you, the people listening to us talk right now. The biggest challenge you're going to have is as you start making it cross-functional, you're going to have to start managing priorities, because all of a sudden everybody's going to want their project first. And so you're going to have to navigate that process, and that can be a little bit challenging. But what you absolutely don't want to do is you don't want to fly under the radar, right? You don't want to try to minimize this and just kind of get it out there real quick, because if you just try to get it out there, you're going to fail, because you're not going to get the support that you need from others. You're not going to get the adoption. You're not going to be as loud as you could possibly be to get it. And really, you need to be loud so you get your associates' attention through this process. I kind of look at, if you take the approach of flying under the radar, it's the same approach the WFM vendors gave when you got mobile WFM to begin with, which is they just kind of threw it in with your workforce management purchase, right? It was just something they added on. No big deal. How many people then have adopted mobile workforce management? Again, it's been 10 years and we're still talking about it. So flying under the radar is going to work about as well as the vendors did, the job the vendors did when selling it to you to begin with. Well, let's take a look at your poll results, or the poll results, and talk just about those for a minute here. Robin, I think I've just displayed those. Hopefully you can see them.
Yes, for sure. And not surprising. I think it's spread a little between, yes, we really have somebody at that level, or it is nothing, right? Yeah. There is really nobody care and feeding for this at this point. And I think that is exactly what we're seeing, because I think there is still the confusion of, what is this? Isn't this just an HR play? Or is this just, you go do that as part of your mobile WFM? I think it is still very confusing about what's our strategy. Well, let me back up. What is it? What is it for us? What is our definition? What are we trying to solve? And then where does it fit in the organization? Who should own it? This doesn't surprise me at all because I felt like it would either be a few handfuls of like the COO type of, or CHR, and then it would be, or nobody, because it's really kind of all over. People are talking about it, but nobody's really owning.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So in the chat panel, somebody else said that their CIO does actually own the digital transformation of the business. And I think that completely makes sense as a technology platform perspective, right? They're going to be introducing the digital technology that sits behind it. But what we've found, and I think we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, is that the business process that goes behind it, what we're actually automating, there's so much implications by a digital workplace and by even just mobile workforce management that ultimately we see the business needs to be heavily involved in driving a lot of that.
You know, that's a great point, because a CIO might not feel like the right person to manage and own a team member experience or a digital transformation. However, if that's the person in the organization that when they say something or they get behind a product can get the momentum moving forward for it and has that kind of, power within the organization, then that's the right person. Again, then you have your steering committee, you have the supporting cast that'll be able to support him or her in the business process piece of it, right, Bob? So I mean, it's really, you just need an executive that really will be passionate about it.
Yep, absolutely. So let me start my next poll, and then we'll kind of get into the next topic here. And the next poll really focuses on technology because that's what our next topic is. So I've just opened the poll. If you don't mind taking a second and reviewing that, or maybe it'll help as I get into our presentation here to talk about technology. And the reality is that the solutions and what your options are evolving rapidly. And I guess before I get into this, I'm not going to talk about vendors here. This isn't a vendor landscape or a vendor review. We can certainly do that, and the market is very wide open. Instead, I kind of want to talk about what the different technology options are as it relates to the digital workplace and mobile workforce management. And kind of on the far left side there, that first option is the solution that your vendor provides. So it's the Kronos mobile experience or the Infor mobile experience or the Ceridian mobile experience. It's that tool, whether it's an application or whether it's mobile-enabled web pages that your vendor provides. And that next bucket over is shift management and communication. What we're really talking about here are the suite of apps that are available on most of the app stores or all the app stores, things like Shift with SHYFT or Branch Messenger that offer very limited capabilities but are intended to either operate on their own or bolt onto your mobile WFM solution. The third one then is what I think of as an integrated digital workplace platform. And this is something that could be like WorkJam, but there's a lot of variety that's out there in this space right now. This is probably the widest open area of the market, because I would also bucket things like Workplace for Facebook or Microsoft Teams in this integrated platform concept. And the idea behind the integrated platform is you end up with one user experience that represents your digital workplace to your associates. And then last but not least, I've got the homegrown bucket in there, because we have seen customers or retailers go down that homegrown path in the past. So each of these provide pros and cons. In my mind, the biggest pros of each solution are on the screen here. So with mobile WFM, the big benefit is that it's already integrated with your enterprise WFM solution. There's no technology integration that's required. From a shift management perspective, the reality is that this is probably already being used by your associates, right? The way that these vendors originally got started was really from a grassroots perspective by encouraging your store managers, your associates, and even your district managers to do a one-off and use these tools outside of your view. And now they're taking a bit of an enterprise strategy. So your associates are probably already familiar, or some group of your associates are probably already familiar with these tools. the under integrated platform, I really think the pro of this is that it's going to be much more than WFM, right? So if all you ever want to do on mobile for your associates is WFM, then this is probably not where you want to be. But the reality, and kind of like we said when we talked about the case studies earlier, is that everybody's kind of got a different reason. And while scheduling is an important piece of that, there are other things you can do, like rewards and recognition, or communication, or mobile learning, or task management, and the question you need to ask yourself is, do I want to present that as one application or minimize my icons that I'm giving my user, or do I want to, how do I want to present that? And that's where the integrated platform comes in. Now, the homegrown solution, the benefit there is really that it's built for purpose. And the couple of retailers that I know that have gone down this path have really done this because the technology that they have behind it, the back-end systems, whether it's WFM or whatever it might be, maybe are not as robust or as modern as they want it to be. And so they want to build business logic in, or they want to do something that's unique for their culture that they're not able to find on the market. And so the benefit is that they can build whatever they want to in that mobile solution. But there are cons with each of these solutions as well. And again, in my opinion, the highest level cons are presented here. With the mobile WFM is considering how long they've been out, they do less than you think, right? Like the idea of being able to post open shifts and have an open shift marketplace or a bulletin board of shifts is challenging with some of these solutions. Allowing employee-to-employee swaps is challenging with some of these solutions. So again, the con with the mobile WFM is that they often just don't do everything that you want it to do. Now, as we move to the right, shift management and communication, they have a much more sophisticated, easier to use mobile experience. But one of the challenges that they've got is they're really inexperienced when it comes to integration. We see that they really struggle when it comes to any WFM vendor to get it integrated, and are often dependent on you and your technology organization to make that integration happen. So we've got a lot of some good relevant experience here, but they often lack that experience. From the integrated platform perspective, it's kind of the inverse to my pro up there, which is it is more than WFM. So the question is if you look at that, are you overpaying for what you need? So that would be something you need to look about there. And then from a homegrown perspective, the challenge with homegrown is that it is costly and time consuming to both build and maintain. I think the amount of time it takes for you to get live is going to be much longer. And then you need to have a team that's ongoing to maintain that solution and improve that solution over time. So you really have to ask yourself, do we want to be in that software development business, or do we want to rely on the vendor? So just before we move, I want to pick up on time in a minute, or actually I want to have Robin pick up on time in a minute, but I want to look over and show you guys the results of this poll. I thought I lost my mouse there, but there it is. So now you should be able to see the results of the poll. And I guess, not surprisingly, we see a wide variety of responses here, right? We see a pretty evenly spread between those first three options, which is a mobile WFM solution, a shift management and communication, and an integrated platform. That, to me, is absolutely where the market is. And I guess as big as that is, we're still figuring it out. So, a great response here. And kind of, I think it really is indicative of what the market looks like right now. So Robin, I want to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about I shared my technology view. Share for us your deployment view of things. We know that this can be fast, but talk a little bit about how and why.
Okay. Guys, I think that if you've been a part of a workforce management solution before in any implementation, some of them drag on for years. This is very different. The applications, whether it's mobile or it's integrated or it's shift and communication, almost all of those are built so that they go live in weeks. It's also a different concept, though, on how it goes live in weeks, where the application is suited for it. It's built for it. There's a bit of an agile piece of it, so it's very flexible. In going live in weeks means, think about it, it's really the front end of everything you've done all the heavy lifting in. So if it's about shifts, or open shifts, if it's about seeing schedules, time off requests, or just communication. Some of the biggest things that you have to work through are, what is the new cultural change? What is the process change? But going live, the application and going live can be done in weeks. Now, along with that is that these are suited for an agile type approach. So they're very well suited for, let's get out there and get live. Let's have our end users use it. Let's get the store's perspective. Let's see how the employees are reacting to it, because it's very easy and nimble to make changes in most of these applications. Now, I'm speaking mostly, obviously, from the packaged ones that we've been working with. The homegrown one, as Bob alluded to, there are definitely some issues with how fast you can go live, because just purely the support of it. However, it's suited for agile. Now, you might have thought in the past, workforce management, not really easily suited for a true agile methodology, but digital is. It's your front end. You've already done the heavy lifting, as I said. So let's go. Let's get the product out as fast as we possibly can. Now, what does that mean in terms of us being able to do that? If we think about it from an integration standpoint, so before you could even turn on a workforce management or a PeopleSoft solution, you need to be fully integrated, having data moving back and forth, having a real robust integration system with scripts or pulling the APIs. In this particular instance, you can literally go live with the ability of using flat files. So you don't have to turn everything on and have this fully integrated system. There are abilities of doing that. Now, as you see up on the screen, you've got to know what the speed bumps are. You have to know what the next risk is as you're doing that. So you've got to be very prepared for it. But if you know going into it, you're ready for it. Now, this is what we've been working with our customers quite a bit on in the implementation, which is, let's go live. Let's get it out to the stores. Let's get it out to the locations and the sites. Now, when you do that, remember, we're going to only be loading schedules every night. So it's not going to be live at certain times. But if this is just your pilot group, let's treat it as a true pilot group. But we're going to give you what those speed bumps are, what those issues are, what those risks are, so that we can build the roadmap around those. And you'll be ready to be fully integrated as you roll it out to the entire location and the banners. So I think it's built for, they're supposed to go fast. Again, think about how an app you put on your phone, you're supposed to be able to use it right then. That's a bit of what the digital and mobilization work is these days with the technology, Bob. So I think that's, those are some of the things that there's lots of challenges, but that's what we help you navigate with.
Yeah, a couple of comments about what you said, Robin, is that, right now it's all the rage for IT organizations to develop or to adopt Agile as their methodology. And I've been doing Agile development for 20 years, and it is a great methodology when you're building applications to get that minimal viable product up and get it out really quickly and learn from that. The challenge that I have with Agile with a traditional enterprise implementation is that you can't get a minimal viable product out and add to it very quickly without it being very costly and creating challenges. Like, what's a minimal viable product when it comes to WFM? Because I got to schedule people. I got to schedule them well. I need to comply. So while you can use Agile within the implementation and configuration process, it really is just a modified waterfall in some respects. That changes when it comes to a tool like this, where now I can test and learn. I can get something out because the technology side of it's relatively light. I can get something out very quickly. We've seen clients go live in 4 to 8 weeks in their pilot location. And as you said, it is typically not fully integrated at first because we're learning how the system is going to be used and adopted by the end users before we really blast it out. The long pole or the speed bumps in this process is really, in my opinion, two things. One you talked about, which is the technology, and the second is the business side of it, which we kind of hit on earlier when we were talking about the technology pieces earlier, which is when you start rolling this technology out, whether it's within a store or whether it's a group of stores, you start facing things that you've never had to deal with before, or change things that maybe you thought you would put to bed, like how do I want my associates to use their mobile phones? When is it acceptable to use the mobile phone, whether it's on the clock or off the clock? Can they have it on the store floor with them or not? How do they interact with that? That's a very simple example, but there are lots of different policy and process things that you need to jump on. And the minute you start to take it out to a broader group of stores and you start making cross-store scheduling easy, you start introducing other issues. So when an associate shows up at a store for the first time, how is the manager going to accept that person? They didn't interview this person. They didn't hire this person. They don't even know this person. How are they going to manage culturally when that person comes in? For that associate, how do they know where to put their coat when they walk in, or where they actually clock in and out, or where the restroom is? You need to start to introduce this orientation mentality it's a very specific example, but you need to start tackling issues that you haven't necessarily had to tackle before, or tackle at the scale that you're going to need to tackle it when you get into it. But again, going fast is easy. It's managing the road bumps and having a strategy that aligns those things along the way so you can ultimately be successful.
You know, Bob, one of the other things that I think is important here, too, to remember is that when like you said earlier with workforce management, where I've got to schedule people, they've got to come in on the shifts, we have to be compliant, we have to make sure we're meeting all of the labor laws, the rules. The thing about some of this technology is it's not go big or go home, meaning it doesn't have to be everything at once. You've got the ability to turn on pieces that can be very impactful. So if I just did a workforce management system and I turned on just timekeeper, for most organizations, because we've been doing it for 50, 60, 100 years for some of you, that's not really impactful. We've been clocking in and out. Okay, so that's not really. But if we turned on a tool, let's say there was a new one, and all you wanted to do is ask surveys of your employees, because that's how you're building your next initiatives, or that's how you're getting feedback. That's all you did. That can go on very quickly. The underlying piece of it from the process standpoint is who's getting back to the folks once they take the survey. You've got to be very timely on it. What are you doing with the information that you're getting? So it's the underlying stuff that we have to work on, not so much about the adoption rate out in the beginning when it goes out, and you don't have to do everything at once. So I think that's also about it's built for speed. It's not built that you have to do everything if you're buying an integrated solution, or even if you're doing a shift or a communication or a mobile, not everything has to go out at once.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, let's start wrapping this up and bringing it home. I'm amazed at how everybody stuck to it. When we started this conference, or when we started this webinar today, we've had like 85 people on, and we still have 80, and that's a big win for everybody, I think. So hopefully this has been good. But let me just kind of summarize our key takeaways from today. And so the first is that your digital workplace journey, your mobile workforce management journey is unique. And strategy, those guiding principles, the reason why you're doing it is understanding that is very critical to your success and to your starting point. In fact, I think it is the grease that makes it go faster. I was trying to think of the cliche that I can't think of about grease and skids, but I'm going to move on before I embarrass myself any further. The second thing is that your success hinges not only on that strategy, but also on a champion and cross-functional ownership. Without a champion and owners across the organization, you're flying under the radar, and that is a recipe for failure. So having that champion and owners are critical, and we've helped our clients navigate through that several times. The next piece then is to find a technology solution that fits your strategy. Again, knowing what you want to do both today and where you want to be in the future is important, and something that I guess we didn't talk about in the technology side, but we have seen is that this technology is a little bit, I don't want to call it disposable, but it's easier to switch from one to the next. So if you say, well, I believe that our journey is just about mobile WFM right now, and I'm going to go with the shift management tool, or I'm going to go with mobile WFM, if that's where you want to, if that's all you think you're going to be today, and then you find out later on it's something else, it's okay. Switching this solution is ultimately easier than switching something else later on. But still, you want to be cautious with how the tool that you pick, and you want to make sure you pick one that fits your needs. So make sure you find a technology solution that fits your strategy. And then last but not least, be fast and be agile, because once you get this into the field, your associates are going to eat it up. We have seen such heavy adoption, heavy use of the tool by the associates once they realize it's available, that they are going to want you to go super, super fast. And again, navigating the nuances of how fast you can go and what other things you need to think about, that's what we've been doing all day long. So we are almost out of time. I was going to do a little bit of Q&A, but we're gonna run out of time here. So if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to follow up. I think most of you have my email address, but if you don't, it's bclements, Clements, at AxiomGroup.com. Robin is our Merritt at AxiomGroup.com. I really appreciate the time that all of you gave us today. Thank you so much. And just one more reminder, if you haven't registered yet, please, I encourage you to register and come to either the UK forum or the US forum in Surrey and Nashville, respectively. So again, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you in Nashville or Surrey soon. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.